As someone who uses my MacBook daily, I sometimes find myself in situations where work just gets difficult, where I ask myself, why doesn't macOS just do this natively already? So in this video I want to share 5 unique Mac apps that I use every single day. Apps that speed up my workflow, remove unnecessary friction, and honestly just make using my MacBook more enjoyable overall. And if you're new here, hi, my name is Max. I'm a videographer and editor working in the creator and branding space. I've spent the last 6 years editing, managing projects, and handling all the typical daily admin tasks, from writing emails to creative to-dos like ideation or concept development. Because of that, I rely heavily on my MacBook, not just as a tool, but as something that needs to keep up with how I work. I'm constantly switching context, working from different places, jumping between tasks, and I need things to just work without friction or long workarounds slowing me down. Some of the apps I'm going to show you are free, while others have paid plans, but none of them are sponsored. These are all based on my personal experience, using them for years, some for months, and some I only discovered recently. But all of them make my life and my work significantly easier. So the first app I'd like to show you is called Nook, and the idea behind it is actually kind of simple, but also really clever. It takes something that normally feels like wasted space on a MacBook, the notch, which is basically missing screen real estate, and turns it into something useful. It actually turns it into a UI hub that you can use and interact with, kind of inspired by Apple's Dynamic Island on the iPhone, but just brought over to macOS. So it's not just decoration, it's more like a control center, a mix between widgets and an interaction zone that sits right into the Mac experience. And what I like about it, that it just runs in the background automatically. You set it up once and then it basically just lives there. You don't even have to think about it. I have mine set to open on startup, so it's always there when I log in. And the way you interact with it can be customized. In my case, I mainly use hover, so I just move my cursor over the notch area and it expands. But you can also set it to click or different gestures depending on how you want it to behave. But what can it do? Now inside of it, there are a few main things that make it extremely useful. It's customizable, but on mine, on the left side, there's media control. It automatically detects what you're playing, like Spotify or YouTube in the browser, and lets you control it without switching tabs. So you can pause, skip, go forward, all of that without ever leaving what you're doing. And that's great, because every time you avoid switching tabs or apps, you stay a bit more in flow. Also on mine, on the right side, I set up a unified calendar view. This puts together my Google Calendar, my Notion calendar in one place. And the Notion part goes even deeper, because I can connect it to a project database. So instead of just seeing events, you're also seeing things like client work, personal tasks, appointments, and to-dos, all in one timeline. This way you can quickly glance at what's happening today and also jump between past and upcoming days if you need to. So in practice, it just becomes this one glance overview of your entire day. Then there's also a tray system, which is basically like a temporary holding space. You can drag and drop things into it, similar to a clipboard, but visual and reusable. So instead of constantly copying and losing things, you can just park them there and reuse them later. And beyond that, there's a lot of customization. You can change the layouts, gestures, appearances, width, drop areas, basically how it looks and behaves. Beyond the features I just showed, like calendar and media player, there are also shortcuts, camera mirror, notes, and even quick apps and to-dos that are coming soon. Plus live activities and different UI behaviors you can tweak. So it's very flexible, you can really shape it around how you work. And that's kind of the main point. It takes this completely unused part of your screen and turns it into something intentional. Something that actually supports your workflow instead of just sitting there. And even though it's not native to macOS, it still feels surprisingly natural once it's set up. The second app that fits super natively on Mac is Raycast, and the easiest way to describe it is kind of simple. It's a supercharged replacement for Spotlight. It's faster, more powerful, and way more extensible. But more importantly, it stops being just another app launcher and turns into something else entirely. A command center for your Mac. Basically Spotlight on steroids. And the interesting part is that it comes in 2 versions. There's a free version, which is already extremely powerful on its own, and there's a paid version that adds extra features like AI tools. But honestly, I don't even use that part, and the free version is more than enough for what I need. Setup wise, it feels familiar at first. You trigger it with a shortcut. I use Option space instead of the default command space. And when it opens, it looks similar to Spotlight, but then you quickly realize it's doing way more. It suggests actions, tools, and commands dynamically, and it's extremely fast. Like there's almost no delay. It just reacts instantly, which is a big part of why it feels so good to use. Now in my day-to-day, I use it for a few specific things. First is clipboard history. So instead of only being able to paste what you just copied, you can actually go back and access anything you've copied before. And when you're working in repetitive workflows, that becomes surprisingly useful. Then there's the inline calculator. You don't need to open a separate calculator app anymore. You can just type math directly into Raycast and get an instant result. Then there's one of my favorite extensions, the YouTube downloader. This one is huge for my workflow, because normally you'd end up searching for random download sites, dealing with limits, ads, redirects, all of that. But inside Raycast, you just install the extension and it works cleanly cleanly. No sketchy websites, no weird restrictions, especially useful for client work or editing workflows where you just need content quickly and reliable. On top of that, Raycast connects with a lot of apps. Things like Notion, Slack, Zoom, Spotify, browsers like Arc, password managers like 1Password, even tools like Google Translate, Todoist, Obsidian, depending on your setup. You can install extensions for different tools, automate workflows, connect services like GitHub, and even run scripts if you want to go deeper. It's very customizable depending on how you work. And the idea is simple. It becomes a universal command layer across your entire Mac. You can also use built-in tools like timers, system commands like sleep or restart, and as I said, some basic AI features. It basically replaces multiple apps, multiple workflows, and honestly even Spotlight entirely. Everything gets centralized in one fast, responsive interface. The third app is Magnet, and this one is really about fixing something that still feels strange to me on Mac, especially in 2026. There is still no proper window snapping, and at first it sounds like a basic thing, but once you've used it properly, especially if you've ever used it on Windows, you realize how much of a difference it just makes. Because on Windows you have this out of the box. You drag a window, it snaps into place, you're done. On Mac, it's more like you're manually arranging everything. Dragging, resizing, adjusting, trying to make your workspace feel organized, but it never quite clicks to place the same way. So Magnet fixes that. It brings proper window snapping to macOS. You can snap windows into left and right halves, corners, thirds, full screen. Basically all the standard layouts you'd expect. And suddenly your workspace starts feeling structured instead of just a bunch of floating windows. Now, the way I use it is mainly through keyboard shortcuts. That's the main workflow for me. It's just faster and more precise than dragging windows around. I can instantly split left and right, go full screen or place things into quadrants. Even more detailed layouts like top left, top right, bottom right, or splitting into thirds depending on what I'm working on. Dragging still exists, but I barely use it. Especially on multiple monitors, it can get a bit annoying, because sometimes your laptop misinterprets what you're trying to do. Instead of snapping the window, it thinks you want to move it to another screen entirely, so it becomes inconsistent. So I just avoid that altogether and stick to shortcuts. It's way easier this way. And then there's this use case I didn't really expect at first, but I use it quite a lot now. You can basically simulate mobile screen sizes. So if I want to have a screen recording that looks like a phone, I don't use my phone, but my laptop. What I do is I split my browser window into a third of the screen, either left, center or right. And that gives you this narrow layout that feels almost like a phone interface. And then I can screen record that directly on my Mac. So overall, Magnet is not complicated. It doesn't try to do too much. It just fixes something that should already be built into macOS. It makes your overall workspace that much cleaner. So the fourth app is Peachy Timer. And this one is also really simple on the surface, but it connects to a much bigger idea. It's basically a super minimal Pomodoro style timer. And if you're not familiar with the Pomodoro technique, it's a time management method that breaks work into short, structured intervals. The idea is pretty straightforward. You work in focused blocks, then take short breaks. And the goal is to improve focus while also preventing burnout over longer periods of work. What I like about Peachy Timer is that it takes a concept and removes basically all friction from it. There's no setup process, no menus, no overthinking. It's just there and you can immediately start using it. And for me, this matters a lot. It's also about avoiding burnout and breaking up the monotony, especially during long editing sessions. Because sometimes I'll be working on 8, 9, even 10 hours on editing. And if I don't structure that in some way, the entire day can feel like a long blended block of work. Imagine you finished work, but it doesn't really feel like you've done anything in between. That's why my typical workflow looks like this. I'll do around 15 minutes of focused work, then take a break. That break could be getting a snack, getting some fresh air, or changing the environment. The goal is always the same though, stay in flow, but don't stay locked into one static state for too long. And there's actually something really interesting about it. Let me share this as a very brief detour. There's this tension between two ideas. On one side, new experiences make time feel longer, like when you're a kid and everything feels stretched out because every day brings something new. And on the other side, repetition is what makes habits stick. The more you repeat something, the more automatic it becomes. And those two things almost work against each other, because novelty stretches your perception of time, but repetition is what makes things sustainable. So the way I see it, productivity and how we experience time are kind of in conflict. And structured breaks are what balance that. Enough repetition to stay in flow, but enough interruption so the day doesn't just blur together. And that's basically where I use Peachy Timer. The way you use it is incredibly simple. It's a drag-based timer. No typing, no setup menus, you just pull and go. It then starts instantly. And the simplicity is the whole point. It lowers the barrier so much that starting a session doesn't feel like a decision anymore. It just happens. And that matters more than it sounds, because it makes it easier to actually begin focused work. It helps you to sustain energy across your long creative days. And it prevents your work from collapsing into a blurry, exhausting block where you don't really feel the progress while you're doing it. So it's not just a timer. Lastly, the fifth app is called CleanShot X. And this one is basically a full replacement for the native macOS screenshot tool. But take that away further. There are so many unique and great things about it, because it doesn't just do screenshots. It combines screenshots, screen recordings, editing, and a bunch of utility features into one system. And that's the key idea here. Instead of jumping between different tools for different parts of the process, everything just happens in one place. Starting with the screenshot workflow, this is where you immediately notice the difference. After you take a screenshot, it doesn't just disappear into your files. It actually stacks them in a small corner. So you can instantly copy them, drag them, or use them without having to save them anywhere first. And that alone changes how you can work with images. For example, when I'm gathering inspiration like thumbnail ideas, I can just take multiple screenshots and drag them directly into tools like Notion or Figma. And on top of that, there's built-in editing. Right after you capture something, you can edit it. You can blur sensitive parts, annotate, highlight, or even number elements. Then there are design features on top of that. You can add backgrounds like gradients, wallpapers, or custom colors. You can adjust padding, shadows, corner radius, and even save everything as presets so you can reuse styles later. And because of that, a lot of the time I don't even need Photoshop for simple edits anymore. It's just faster for things like presentations, content creation, or quick visual work. Then there's also the other half, which is screen recording. And here the tool honestly shines, because macOS normally has some pretty annoying limitations, especially when it comes to audio. CleanShot X fixes that by letting you record both microphone audio and system audio without needing external tools like OBS or Blackhole or any other complicated audio setup. And then there are extra features that make it especially useful. You can highlight clicks, which is great for tutorials. You can show keystrokes if you want to demonstrate shortcuts. And you can even add a camera overlay if you want to include yourself in the recording. After you're done, you can immediately trim the recording, convert formats, and finish everything without opening another app. And then there are also even more advanced features that make it even more powerful. You can take scrolling screenshots, which means you can capture entire pages that go beyond your screen, either through auto scroll or manual control. There's OCR built in as well, so you can extract text from images or screenshots and it automatically copies it to your clipboard. That's especially useful when you can't normally select text, but you still need it. And one small but really underrated thing, it hides desktop clutter automatically when you take a screenshot. So your captures always look clean without you having to prepare anything. So CreenShot X is not just a screenshot tool. It's more like a complete thought out capturing system. So if you take a step back from all 5 of these tools, there's a pretty clear pattern that runs through all of them. They all solve the same underlying problem, friction. And that friction shows up in small ways. Little inefficiencies, constant context switching, native workflows that technically work but feel clunky in practice. Those moments where you think macOS could do this, but somehow still needs a workaround. And over time, those small moments add up. It isn't really about saving time. That's almost a secondary effect. It's really about staying in the flow, reducing mental overhead, making the actual process of work feel more smoother, lighter, and even more enjoyable. And just as importantly, spending less time jumping between apps and more time actually doing the work. So I don't feel like it's about adding more tools, but upgrading your existing tools for better tools. The ones that remove clutter and stress. So yeah, I hope at least a few of them were new to you or helpful in some way. I'd love to hear what you think I should have included in this list and what your favorite Mac apps are. Leave a comment because I'm always curious to discover new ones that actually improve the workflow instead of just adding noise. With that being said, thank you so much for watching until the end, and I will catch you guys in the next one.